The FIFA World Cup, often simply called the World Cup, is an international association football competition between the senior men's national teams of the members of the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA, the sport's global governing body. The tournament has been held every 4 years since the inaugural tournament in 1930, with the exception of 1942 and 1946 due to the Second World War. The reigning champions are Argentina, who won their third title at the 2022 tournament. The contest starts with the qualification phase, which takes place over the preceding 3 years to determine which teams qualify for the tournament phase. In the tournament phase, 32 teams compete for the title at venues within the host nations over the course of about a month. The host nations automatically qualify for the group stage of the tournament. The competition is scheduled to expand to 48 teams, starting with the 2026 tournament. As of the 2022 FIFA World Cup, 22 final tournaments have been held since the event's inception in 1930, and a total of 80 national teams have competed. The trophy has been won by 8 national teams. Brazil, with 5 wins, are the only team to have played in every tournament. The other World Cup winners are Germany and Italy, with 4 titles each, Argentina, with 3 titles, France and inaugural winner Uruguay, each with 2 titles, and England and Spain, with 1 title each. The World Cup is the most prestigious association football tournament in the world, as well as the most widely viewed and followed single sporting event in the world. 1-2. The viewership of the 2018 World Cup was estimated to be 3.57 billion, close to half of the global population, 3 of 4. While the engagement with the 2022 World Cup was estimated to be 5 billion, with about 1.5 billion people watching the final match, 17 countries have hosted the World Cup, most recently Qatar, who hosted the 2022 event. The 2026 tournament will be jointly hosted by Canada, the United States and Mexico, which will give Mexico the distinction of being the first country to host games in 3 World Cups. Previous international competitions. The world's first international football match was a challenge match played in Glasgow in 1872 between Scotland and England. 6. The first international tournament for nations. The inaugural British Home Championship took place in 1884 and included games between England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland. 7. As football grew in popularity in other parts of the world at the start of the 20th century, it was held as a demonstration sport with no medals awarded at the 1900 and 1904 Summer Olympics. However, the International Olympic Committee has retroactively upgraded their status to official events, as well as the 1906 Intercalated Games. 8. After FIFA was founded in 1904, it tried to arrange an international football tournament between nations outside the Olympic framework in Switzerland in 1906. These were very early days for international football, and the official history of FIFA describes the competition as having been unsuccessful. 9. At the 1908 Summer Olympics in London, football became an official Olympic sport. Planned by the Football Association, FA, England's football governing body, the event was for amateur players only and was regarded suspiciously as a show rather than a competition. Great Britain, represented by the England national amateur football team, won the gold medals. They repeated the feat at the 1912 Summer Olympics in Stockholm. 10. With the Olympic event continuing to be a contest between amateur teams only, Sir Thomas Lipton organised the Sir Thomas Lipton Trophy tournament in Turin in 1909. The Lipton tournament was a championship between individual clubs, not national teams, from different nations, each of which represented an entire nation. The competition is sometimes described as the first World Cup. 11, and featured the most prestigious professional club sides from Italy, Germany and Switzerland, but the FA of England refused to be associated with the competition and declined the offer to send a professional team. Lipton invited West Auckland, an amateur side from County Durham, to represent England instead. West Auckland won the tournament and returned in 1911 to successfully defend their title 12 prior to the Lipton competition from 1876 to 1904. Games that were considered to be the Football World Championship were meetings between leading English and Scottish clubs, such as the 1895 game between Sunderland AFC and the Heart of Midlothian FC, which Sunderland won 13. In 1914, FIFA agreed to recognize the Olympic tournament as a World Football Championship for amateurs and took responsibility for managing the event. 14. This paved the way for the world's first intercontinental football competition for nations at the 1920 Summer Olympics, contested by Egypt and 13 European teams, and won by Belgium. 15. Uruguay won the next two Olympic football tournaments in 1924 and 1928. Those were also the first two Open World Championships, as 1924 was the start of FIFA's professional era, and is the reason why Uruguay is allowed to wear 4 stars. 16. 17. Due to the success of the Olympic football tournaments, FIFA, with President Jules Rimet as the driving force, again started looking at staging its own international tournament outside of the Olympics. On the 28th of May, 1928, the FIFA Congress in Amsterdam decided to stage a World Championship, 18, with Uruguay now 2-time official football world champions, and to celebrate their centenary of independence in 1930, FIFA named Uruguay as the host country of the inaugural World Cup tournament. 19. The national associations of selected nations were invited to send a team, but the choice of Uruguay as a venue for the competition meant a long and costly trip across the Atlantic Ocean for European sides, especially in the midst of the Great Depression. As such, no European country pledged to send a team until 2 months before the start of the competition. Rimet eventually persuaded teams from Belgium, France, Romania, and Yugoslavia to make the trip. 19. In total, 13 nations took part, 7 from South America, 4 from Europe, and 2 from North America. 20. The first 2 World Cup matches took place simultaneously on the 13th of July, 1930, and were won by France and the United States, who defeated Mexico 4-1 and Belgium 3-0 respectively. The first goal in World Cup history was scored by Lucien Laurent of France. 21. In the final, Uruguay defeated Argentina 4-2 in front of 93,000 spectators in Montevideo, and became the first nation to win the World Cup. 22. After the creation of the World Cup, FIFA and the IOC disagreed over the status of amateur players. Football was dropped from the 1932 Summer Olympics. 23-24. After the IOC and FIFA worked out their differences, Olympic football returned at the 1936 Summer Olympics, but was now overshadowed by the more prestigious World Cup. 23. The issues facing the early World Cup tournaments were the difficulties of intercontinental travel and war. Few South American teams were willing to travel to Europe for the 1934 World Cup, and all North and South American nations except Brazil and Cuba boycotted the 1938 tournament. Brazil was the only South American team to compete in both. The 1942 and 1946 competitions, which Germany and Brazil sought to host, 25, were cancelled due to World War II. 26. The 1950 World Cup, held in Brazil, was the first to include British football associations. Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland had withdrawn from FIFA in 1920, partly out of unwillingness to play against the countries they had been at war with, and partly as a protest against foreign influence on football. 27. The teams rejoined in 1946 following FIFA's invitation. 28. The tournament also saw the return of 1930 champions Uruguay, who had boycotted the previous 2 World Cups. Uruguay won the tournament again after defeating the host nation Brazil in the match called Maracanazo Portuguese, Maracanaco. 29 in the tournaments between 1934 and 1978. 16 teams competed in each tournament, except in 1938, when Austria was absorbed into Germany after qualifying, leaving the tournament with 15 teams, and in 1950, when India, Scotland and Turkey withdrew, leaving the tournament with 13 teams. 30. Most of the participating nations were from Europe and South America, with a small minority from North America, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. These teams were usually defeated easily by the European and South American teams. Until 1982, the only teams from outside Europe and South America to advance out of the first round were United States, semi-finalists in 1930, Cuba, quarter-finalists in 1938, North Korea, quarter-finalists in 1966, and Mexico, quarter-finalists in 1970. The tournament was expanded to 24 teams in 1982, 31, and then to 32 in 1998. 32, allowing more teams from Africa, Asia, and North America to take part. Since then, teams from these regions have enjoyed more success, with several having reached the quarterfinals: Mexico, quarterfinalists in 1986, Cameroon, quarterfinalists in 1990, South Korea, finishing in 4th place in 2002, Senegal, along with USA, both quarterfinalists in 2002, Ghana, quarterfinalists in 2010, Costa Rica, quarterfinalists in 2014, and Morocco, finishing in 4th place in 2022. European and South American teams continue to dominate, e.g., the quarterfinalists in 1994, 1998, 2006 and 2018 were all from Europe or South America, and so were the finalists of all tournaments so far. 200 teams entered the 2002 FIFA World Cup qualification rounds. 198 nations attempted to qualify for the 2006 FIFA World Cup. A record 204 countries entered qualification for the 2010 FIFA World Cup, 33. In October 2013, Sepp Blatter spoke of guaranteeing the Caribbean Football Union's region a position in the World Cup.